Well, welcome to the May 2026 issue of Lunch and Learn. Our goal is always to provide code and industry updates. And today we are looking at bubble wrap for your ductwork. And State Inspector Kerry Baker will be providing our code perspective. Kerry covers the northeast corner of the state as a mechanical inspector. And Kerry, this is your baptism of fire into Lunch and Learn, and we're starting with a topic like bubble wrap. How did you first get involved with bubble wrap?
Well, I got involved with it a long time ago. Before we get started, Tom, how long have you been doing those turns?
Uh, 5, 6 years. I don't really know.
Well, I watched the first one,
You
and
did.
I have watched them almost every one since. I just want you to know that I appreciate what you're doing.
Well, I tell you what, if it were not for the good relationship that we have with Lindsay Moore and the Department of Labor and Licensing and Tony and all the good folks up there, we wouldn't be able to do it. As I understand, we're the only place in the country that's doing this, and I just give everybody credit for making it happen.
And I've talked to people that are not in our state that watch our lunch and learn via YouTube.
Wow. Which by the way, let me throw this in here. Thank you for the segue. If you were wanting to watch these programs, the easiest way to do it, you will get a notice from us telling you what the link is. But then if you lose it, you just go to our website, which is arhvacr.org, and then click on Lunch and Learn, and then select the one that you're interested in. But okay, let's get on bubble wrap. Thank you very much for that, Kerry. Tell me about bubble wrap.
Well, it's a good way to insulate your duct as long as it is inside. You can't use it in exterior places, but you can use it interior, whether it's under the house, in the attic, or in a closet, wherever it's at, as long
Yeah,
as it's used properly.
yeah. Well, the reason we started with this particular slide is that for years I've always heard that, manufacturer's instructions is going to take precedence over code. And then finally read code, and it says, oh, not so, that the most restrictive of code or manufacturer's instructions is what you've got to live by. So I just want to throw that out there to say people need to make sure that they pay attention to what really needs to be done. Now, here is one particular brand. I'm assuming that there are others, but this is the Big 8 duct insulation. Get me started with this.
Okay, is from Arfoil, and it's
Okay.
called Big 8 Duct Insulation. It is a bubble wrap, and you can wrap your duct two different ways. You can use a spacer under it to get the R8 value, which is a little bit more than our code requires.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can wrap this particular one directly onto the metal duct and get a R6.7.
Hmm. Well, the reason I wanted to throw this in here is to show that in spite of my proclivities to not like it, I have to admit that it meets all of these test data and meets all the values that are there. And so, my question would be, why did I not like it? Because it wasn't what I was doing in the beginning. And you know how hard that is to do is
That's
to break
correct.
to to break with what you're accustomed to doing it. But this is what you were just saying there.
Yeah, without the spacer and you wrap it directly to the pipe, it's R6.7, which our minimum R value is R6, and over the requirement by 0.7 in the
Yeah.
R value. Or if you use the spacers that they will provide for you, it's R8
Kerry,
insulating value.
here's three different applications. Two of them have to do with being an R6, where you can get it R6 without the spacer. And then this one that we're talking about right now, this R8 that you can get if you put the spacer in there. So I guess there's multiple ways, and I guess any of these three ways would get you our state code minimum requirement, wouldn't it?
That is correct. And it is legal in the state of Arkansas. Now there are some municipalities that will not allow it.
Really?
So you have to be real careful where you go. But anywhere in my region, or my territory, which is actually north central Arkansas,
Oh, really?
I started in the northeast corner and moved to north
Okay.
central.
Okay.
It is allowed, as long as it's done properly.
Well, we're about to get into that, aren't we? And
Yes,
this is
sir.
just a picture of what the air gap looks like. Uh, Carrie, if you're going for the R8 and you're going to have to put in those spacers, how far apart do those spacers need to be?
24 inches.
Okay, so it's a 2-inch wide
It's a
spacer.
2-inch wide spacer. And I believe these are a half inch that are provided by a
Uh-huh.
company. I mean, by the
Okay.
R-foil company. Excuse me.
And you've got to wrap that duct every 24 inches with one of these 2-inch spacers. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Uh-huh.
All right. Moving right along. This is how it comes packaged. 48 by 50 or 48 by 75. I guess you need to do some calculating to know how that's going to compare to your typical fiberglass or now with the foam spray on. Have you had contractors talking to you about that?
Foaming their ducts.
Yeah.
And that is another good way to seal your duct. But it all has to, if you're going to use the foam, it all has to be foam all the way.
Yes, my
No,
personal
no
experience too.
crossbreeding.
Yeah, my personal experience tells me that's harder to do than it is to say.
That's correct.
Okay, most important part of the whole cotton picking thing is this slide right here. And what does it tell us?
I'll give you a little background on how I found this. It was the
Okay,
first time I'd ever seen this particular product, a house on the ductwork.
okay.
Heat and air contractor did a good job on his ductwork. Good heat and air contractor. And all this particular bubble wrap, and I didn't know anything about it. So I Googled their installation instructions. I read it, and when I got down there to 3, it clearly states tape all seams and joints using Ecofoil R8 HVAC tape, specially formulated to adhere to Ecofoil Big 8 duct insulation. And so I had to go back to my photos and see what tape he had used. Well, he had used just a normal DC 181B, and that was not the correct. So he had to go back and
Uh,
punt.
and that's sad too, because you said this was a good contractor.
He is. He's a really good contractor.
You know, good contractors can make mistakes that cost a lot of money. And I re-emphasize this again with this particular slide about the tape that you've got to use. Now, let me play the devil's advocate just a minute, because I always like to look at this. My first thought would be, well, of course they want you to use their tape because they're trying to sell tape. But it doesn't mount to a hill of beans, what I think. What matters is what is required, or you're going to have to go back and retape, aren't you?
Correct. And contractor didn't put the argument when I read these instructions to him. His comment was, I hope I don't have to spell this out, but then we talked to
Well,
the distributor, and the distributor had a similar comment. Oh, seems neither one of them had read the manufacturer's installation instructions.
I can appreciate what you're saying there because, again, one little line, and there's no telling how much that cost him because of one little item in the installation instructions that they just went right by without paying attention to it. Oh, people need to pay attention to everything. Hey, Carrie, you also said on another note you wanted to talk a little bit about Flex, so we'll do that very quickly.
Wanted to talk about these, we're back to the manufacturer's installation instructions. IMC 2021 304.1 is a very, very broad code that says use the manufacturer's instructions. Well, this comes from the Green Book, which is free, available to everybody, not just contractors. It's available to everyone. And when you read it, it's not crimped tightly against joists or trusses. You just can't lay that flex duct down and pull it up over a joist or a truss or a beam or something, just let it fold over it. It cannot be done. Has to be hung properly. It needs to run in the most direct path. You can't just north and head south and then head west and then come back to the east a little bit and get to from your trunk line or your plenum to your ceiling boot or your floor boot, wherever you're putting it. Has to run in the most direct path.
Larry, I was watching a commercial just this last weekend, and they were advertising sealing up your crawl space. And in that, they had this flex duct, and it looked just exactly like that slide down here on the bottom. It looked exactly like this, and they were using that picture to advertise what a wonderful thing it was to use their product to seal up your crawl space. And I just about died laughing because I knew we were going to do this and I knew we were going to have this picture. And they were using it as a model for what a crawl space ought to look like.
Well, I hate to say I have seen some pretty extensive duct runs. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay. All right.
But it has to be pulled tight. It has to be ran in the most direct path. Then you have to hang it every 4 feet horizontally. That gets quite cumbersome when you're installing that in an attic. And these new attics that they have these 18, 12 pitch roofs on, you have to go 25 feet up and find something to tie a hanger onto or bring boards and nail them up. I don't envy these heat and air guys when I see some of their jobs. It's quite the task to hang that every 4 feet. And if you're going straight up and straight down, it's every 6 feet. That's not quite as bad. But that 4 feet horizontally is very important to keep the sag out of that flex duct. So they only allow 5% sag, and you can't hang it like a horseshoe.
We used to make a joke that says that you take a box of flex up into the attic and throw it, and wherever it landed is where the next boot would go. I want to
back
thank
before
everybody.
my inspector days, when I was a
Okay.
contractor, I almost accused one contractor of not having a way to cut it. I literally saw him circle the ceiling boot with the flex duct before he went in it.
I do not doubt it. Hey, Carrie, I want to thank you for this, your baptism into Lunch and Learn. We appreciate it very much. Well, we appreciate Tony setting it up for you to be able to do it and allowing you to take the time to do it. Folks, if you got any questions or compliments or complaints about code related issues, call 501 682 9201. You'll find that the good folks there at the Department of Labor and Licensing have a reputation of being the nicest, most polite, most thorough group you'll ever deal with. You may at times think that you can't get through, but they're only dealing with a few thousand people every month. So that will kind of help you understand why maybe it's hard for them to get back in touch with you. Another thing to take note of is that if you need to get in touch with them, they have a email address, which is adll.hvac@arkansas.gov. Did I get that right, Carrie?
Yes, sir.
That's a miracle. adll.hvac@arkansas.gov. Well, we want to give you a big thanks for listening in today and for Carrie, you taking time to be here. Look, folks, if you're interested in getting your continuing education, the easiest way in the world for you to do that is simply come to our chapter meetings every October and February. You get to meet a lot of people, talk to your friends, have a good meal, and get a couple of hours of continuing education. And over the period of time, you will accumulate the continuing education hours that you need to be able to meet whatever the code is requiring that you do. Our next session is going to be on Monday, June the 8th, and we look forward to you tuning in again. But remember this summer, stay safe, stay hydrated, and we'll see you in June. Carrie, thank you many times over. Bye
Thank
now.
you, Tom.